Okay, this meeting is called to order.
We're back into it.
Will the secretary please read the meeting notice?
The Board of Directors of the School District of the City of Erie, PA will meet in regular session on Wednesday, January 22nd, 2020, in the auditorium at East Middle School, 1001 Atkins Street, at 6 o'clock p.m. by request of the President, Mr. John C. Harkins.
Okay, welcome everyone to the first meeting of the calendar year. I ask everyone in the room to silence their cell phones, please. And I ask the secretary to now call the roll.
Mr. Nichols?
Here.
Ms. Pickens?
She is excused due to travel.
Ms. Sheridan?
Here.
Mr. Spagel?
Here.
Mr. Titus?
Here.
Ms. Cooley? Okay. Mrs. Feeney?
Here.
Mrs. McNair? Mr. Harkins?
Here. Tonight we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Ty Stull, a sixth grade student at Strong Vincent Middle School. He'll be introduced by Ms. Andrea Gloystein, principal, followed by a moment of silence for James Starks, retired custodian who passed away on December 9th, 2019. June Rodriguez, wife of former Superintendent Joseph Rodriguez, who passed away on December 15th of 2019. Howard Van Allsburg, retired teacher who passed away on December 17th, 2019. Mary Baker, former teacher who passed away on December 31st, 2019. Brenda Punt, former Erie School Board Director who passed away on January 1st of 2020. Benjamin Jones, retired custodian who passed away on January 4th, 2020. Mildred Williams, a former custodian who passed away on January 5th, 2020. Lori Ann Budzinski, a retired custodian who passed away on January 10th of 2020. And Dr. Doris Snell, a former Erie School Board Director who passed away recently in December. Long as that was, I just think there are three other people I'd like to take the liberty to mention, and they were not employees, but they were graduates of Erie Public Schools. One was Richard DeFazio, who was the father of one of our retired tradesmen, also the uncle of four of our teachers. His two nephews, Butch DeFazio and Jerry DeFazio, were career teachers in the Erie School District, and his nieces, Jacqueline DeFazio and Mary Ann Larson, were also teachers in the school district. His brother Jimmy was a longtime beloved groundskeeper at Ainsworth Field in the stadium. Secondly, Barry Drew, who was a graduate, and Rich DeFazio graduated from Strong Vincent. Barry Drew graduated from Strong Vincent High School. And he held numerous positions of public responsibility in Erie County and on the state level. Served in 2 or 3 Pennsylvania cabinet level positions with distinction. And Gene Turan was a local man who graduated from East High School, and he made his name in boxing circles and put that good name to use, working with the youth of the community, and his children all attended Erie Public Schools. So with the sad long list of the other employees we lost recently since our last meeting, please include these and anyone else that's in our hearts that's given their love and concern to the school district. So now, with that, Andrea.
Good evening, Mr. Polito, Mrs. Habersky, and members of the school board. It is with great pleasure that I'm here tonight representing Strong Vincent Middle School. As you may know, the motto of Colonel Strong Vincent's Civil War regiment was, "With courage, we conquer." No one lives up to this ideal more than our pledge leader, Ty Stull. When it came to nominating one outstanding student to represent our entire school family, Ty was a unanimous choice. Known as the mayor of SV, Ty brings joy to everyone he encounters. He's the first one to share a joke, a high five, or a quick hug. Ty is an active member of our morning coffee brigade, which starts everyone's day off on a positive note. His favorite subject is science, and he always enjoys eating lunch. Ty also loves going on CBI trips with his team and his teachers. After Ty graduates, he wants to be an undercover police officer and keep our roads safe for his family, his friends, and his teachers. He's also an avid Spider-Man fan and loves all things connected to him. He told me today and asked me to share, if the police career falls through, don't worry, he's going to work along Spider-Man to keep us all safe. Ty is joined tonight by his mom, Elizabeth Simmons, as well as his 3 fantastic teachers, Mrs. Brink, Mrs. Del Sandro, and Mrs. Motney. Ty Stahl represents all that is right with the world. His optimism, work ethic, and kind heart are admired by all of us. Strong Vincent is a better place because Ty is in it. It is my genuine pleasure to introduce you to SV Colonel Ty Stahl.
Would everyone rise? Okay, Ty.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Ty, would you please come and meet the board? Oh, really?
Cute kid.
Well done, baby. Spider-Man's my favorite superhero, too. Those ties stick together, huh?
Yes, we do. We do.
Next, we had a presentation of a certificate of appreciation for Cody Nicolai, the student rep for December and January of this year from Erie High. I don't see Cody. Is he here this evening? If not, we'll have to see that that certificate gets presented to Cody, and thanks for his participation in the student representative to the board program. Okay, next, we have the recognition of James Zebach, Doug White, Ed Kissel, Rich Valhovic, and George Gott, who was unable to attend, but will be appreciated and acknowledged this evening as community supporters of Erie's Public Schools for their efforts to raise funds for the sign replacement at Biletnikoff Field. We're pleased to honor these gentlemen in recognition of their dedication to the students and community of Erie's Public Schools. Jim, Doug, Ed, Rich, and George have been tirelessly working to raise funds necessary to replace the sign at Biletnikoff Field, named after one of our most accomplished alumni, NFL MVP and Hall of Famer Fred Biletnikoff. Jim also donated his expertise in designing the new sign. It is only through the generosity of their time and talents that the district is able to tackle this project and give Fred and our student athletes the facility and recognition that they deserve. On behalf of our students and families, the board does extend our thanks to these gentlemen, Jim, Doug, Ed, and Rich. Please come now to the stage to accept this recognition. George is unable this evening because he's out of town, and we'll make sure he receives his reward. So Tyler, if you'd help me with these.
They're all right here. I heard.
You're a step ahead of me.
Yes. This one will go to, that's the student rep. These are
Okay.
for them.
If you can carry those, and we'll meet those gentlemen at center stage if they come up.
I'm gonna steal this back for you now. This one stays here. I was gonna set it on the end. Oh, go down for him.
Ed. There's somebody.
They want to take a picture first.
Thank you. Nice job. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Beautiful job.
Thank you. Nice job.
As was said, those gentlemen took it upon themselves to recognize a need that we could not easily meet, and they took it upon themselves, and that's what we do at this point of the meeting every month, because many other citizens have in their own way recognized similar needs and stepped forward and did the legwork and the money raising and the physical effort needed and the time involved. It's a great thing when the community, when we as a school district need and can tap the community, and they come to us as volunteers. It's a wonderful thing. Next, we're going to recognize Miles Gates. We'll take this moment to recognize Miles Gates, a sign language interpreter at Strong Vincent Middle School. Miles, whose mother Barbara was a teacher in our school district, I believe most recently at Deal, and is now retired. Miles is a member of the U.S. men's national deaf ice hockey team that recently won gold at the 2019 Winter Deaf Olympics in Italy. Miles served as co-captain, helping propel the team to victory against Canada 7-3. Miles' accomplishments both in the classroom and on the ice should be an inspiration to us all. His hard work and dedication is a testament to his character, and he represents the best of Erie's public schools, On behalf of our students, families, and the board, congratulations, Miles. You are a wonderful ambassador, not just for your sport and your hometown, but for our school district. Please come up to the stage.
I just want to start out by saying thanks for the award and the recognition from the school board for my achievements this past December. I'd also like to thank everyone for the support while I was gone. That includes my family, my friends, my coworkers, and most of all the students. I'd just like to give a little quick background on the Deaf Olympics, since it's something that most people aren't aware of. The Deaf Olympics were founded in the 1920s and is an organization of the International Committee of Sports for the Deaf. The very first games were held in 1924 in Paris, in which went into history as the first international sports event for disabled athletes. Since then, the Deaf Olympics have been held every 4 years. The Winter Olympics were instituted in 1949, and the first games were held in Seefeld, Austria. The mission of the Deaf Olympics is to share and value the deaf athletes striving to reach the pinnacle of competition. The motto is equality through sports. The equality for the Deaf Olympics Games must be at least 16 years old with a minimum loss of 55 dB and a better ear. Once you pass the test and you qualify for the team, there are rules that you must be followed. The most important rule is that no player is allowed to wear hearing aids or cochlear implants. I'm sure you guys are probably wondering how the players are here to whistle. What happens is there's strobe lights that are placed around the boards behind the glass, and once the ref blows the whistle, The lights go off, which signals the player that the play is dead or is stopped. Also, the refs will raise their hands in the air in case some players don't notice the lights are going off, which does happen from time to time. Besides ice hockey and the Winter Deaf Olympics, games include chess, curling, alpine skiing, snowboarding, and cross-country skiing. I first got involved in the Deaf Olympics when I was a freshman in high school. Frank Cicchini, who was an employee of the Erie School District, introduced me to hockey in Chicago called the Hearing Impaired Hockey Association. Stan McKee, who was also hearing impaired and played for the Chicago Blackhawks, formed the school in 1973, provided opportunities for deaf athletes to learn and play organized hockey. Each summer, the school holds a week-long summer camp for the kids ages from 5 and up. AHIA is supported solely by donations, and there are no fees charged to participants and to attend the summer camp. AHIA holds national tryouts for hockey players who wish to play in the Deaf Olympics, and that is how I had the opportunity to try for the USA team. I'd like to close this by saying it was an honor to represent the USA in the Deaf Olympics and also to represent the Erie community along with the deaf community. Especially the students in the Erie School District. I hope that I can influence their lives as they are in mine. Again, thank you.
Congratulations. He would have some hearing because he speaks well.
He's good. He's got some really good hearing aids.
When we had the Boletnikoff sign guys up here, Mr. Kissel, I meant to ask, and it doesn't have to be now, but I meant to ask if you wanted to give us an update. I know you're off to a good start, but it's far from completion. If not now, at some future time, could you come back and give us an update? If you have anything to say now, that'd be fine. If not, just be back when you come back, when and if you have some updates for us.
Just real quick, so far, we've about 40% of our goal, and we still have a number of interested community people that we are contacting, so we're hopeful at the next meeting we may have everything we need to report to you that in the spring we will go ahead with the contract and get that sign up to make that corner a shining point of Erie High.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda, we have recognition of school directors in observation of January being School Director Recognition Month.
So-
Mr. Polito?
I just want to take a moment to thank our school board members for their dedication and service to our district. And just so the audience knows, despite what you may have heard, these school board directors serve with no salary and serve countless hours helping us run the school district. So if you please help me thank them for their service for the school district and the community.
I have an executive session to announce. It was held on Wednesday, January 8th at the Dr. James E. Barker Leadership Center at 148 West 21st Street in Conference Room 3 from 8:15 p.m. till 8:26 p.m. regarding personnel matters. We had an executive session on our agenda for tonight, and if things go okay, or if we can accommodate it, we may still try to do it before we end this meeting later this evening. So we'll see how that goes. The administration had a couple of things to bring us in executive session. So that being done, The report of the superintendent is next. Mr. Polito.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm excited to announce that we'll be celebrating We Love Erie's Public Schools Week, the week of February 3rd. There's a lot to look forward to, including student forums, teacher appreciation events, and spirit days at each of our schools. So I hope you all join us in showing off your pride in the district and celebrating our accomplishments. Speaking of accomplishments, on behalf of the entire district, I want to congratulate our students from Erie High who recently participated in the Skills USA District 10 competitions. The competition is a chance for students to show off their skills in a variety of fields, including cosmetology, welding, culinary arts, and more. Several students took home medals, including Kaylin Fedak, who won a gold medal in the medical assistance competition and will go on to compete at the state level. Congratulations also go to one of our school board members, Angela McNair, who was recently recognized by the Mercy Center for Women as one of the 13 women who are making a significant contribution to their community. The Mercy Center noted her service on the school board, her work as a business owner, and her role as an adjunct professor at Mercyhurst University. Congratulations, Mrs. McNair. The district is hosting an open gym night for all 7th and 8th grade students interested in playing baseball tomorrow from 8 to 9:30 at the Erie High School gym. Additional open gym dates and more information will be provided. And finally, a reminder that all district schools will be closed this coming Monday for a Teacher in Service Day. Pre-K will be in session. And at this point, I'd like to ask Mr. Nixon to come up to present this month's Stair Climber Awards.
Thank you, Mr. Polito. Just want to give thanks to all the board directors as well as superintendents, assistant superintendents for the support, especially all of our buildings, because without the teachers and the administrators to support this, we wouldn't have the nominations. So that's definitely appreciated. Before I go any further, I'd definitely like to just give a warm round of applause for all our parents and guardians that are in the stands tonight. So for our January 2020 Stair Climbers, we already talked a little bit at our meet and greet, so I will go over a little statement, a positive statement. Call your name, please come up. I'll shake your hand. Mr. Sable, who is our principal from Deal Elementary School, is helping tonight, so thank you, Mr. Sable. He'll hand you your plaque. Mr. Don at the top of the steps will get a picture, and then we'll have you line up, and we'll take a large group photo together with the board and the superintendents, and then afterwards, everybody, including the parents, will step out and get a full family and school picture in the lobby, okay? So why we're here. The Stair Climber is our Student Monthly Recognition Award, where each school nominates one student that has shown improvements in attendance, positive behavior, and classroom performance. So without further ado, let's get to our Stair Climbers. First Stair Climber, from the DePaulo Student Success Center. Milena defines the term turnaround. Since starting at the Accelerated Learner Academy High School at Patrick J. DePaulo Student Success Center of Emerson Gridley, Milena has changed her attitude, her worldview, her conduct, and her own expectations of how to succeed in school. She routinely seeks advice from her teachers. She asks great questions in the course of completing her work. She makes no pretense of struggling from time to time, but she shows outstanding judgment in managing those struggles. Furthermore, she now endeavors to share coping strategies with others who struggle to manage their emotions in difficult environments. She works hard to stay on task and on track, and she deserves this recognition. So, ladies and gentlemen, our first 12th grader, Milena Drew. Twelfth grader from Erie High School. Brendan Thurston's GPA has risen to a 4.0 in the second quarter. He is always courteous and respectful and continues to be a role model at Erie High School. Ladies and gentlemen, 12th grader Brendan Thurston. Twelfth grader from Collegiate Academy. Senior Alexa Pierce started at Collegiate Academy as a bright but shy young lady. Over the last 4 years, she has taken 7 AP classes and is currently in a college class at Gannett University. She has written for the School News magazine for 3 years and is currently an editor and co-executive producer of the morning announcements. She is involved in mock trial and is the treasurer of the National Honor Society. That intelligent and shy freshman is now a leader in the school, showing others how to find their voice and get involved. Alexa is kind to everyone she encounters. She leads by example and volunteers in our school and community every chance she gets. She has led clothing and food drives. She has organized several volunteer opportunities for the members of the National Honor Society at the Second Harvest Food Bank, the Erie Free Store, and several others. Ladies and gentlemen, Alexa Pierce. East Middle School 7th grader. Jordan is a 7th grade student at East Middle School. Throughout this year, he has consistently impressed his teachers with his positive attitude, perfect attendance, as well as his persistence in the classroom. Jordan shows up to school every day, ready to give it his all in every task he is asked to do, and has proven to be a leader at East Middle School. We are all very proud to nominate Jordan Latour for East Middle School's January Stair Climber. Ladies and gentlemen, Jordan Latour. From Strong Vincent Middle School, 7th grader. Jose is an all-around leader in the 7th grade. Don't let his quiet presence fool you. His grit, tenacity, and work ethic are admired by everyone at Strong Vincent. Within courage, he conquers. Jose Vera. From Wilson Middle School, 7th grader. Naquan Vega has shown improvement in behavior and grades since the second quarter began. His participation in class has provided many questions and insights which might otherwise have escaped his class, and has also benefited him personally by increasing the quantity of information retained. This is reflected in his grades with his confidence when answering questions. Due to these improvements, we nominate Naquan Vega for January Stair Climber Award. Naquan. From Grover Cleveland, 5th grader. Chris has been taking more responsibility for his work, participating in class, and has been more focused since the beginning of the year. He had a hard time focusing while sitting in a group at the beginning of the year. He is now sitting with a partner and has been successful. He has improved his grades in social studies, writing, and science. The area of greatest improvement is his behavior last year. At this time, he had numerous referrals. At this point, he has not had any office referrals. His positive attitude and continued effort to improve indicate that he is making positive progress up the staircase of success. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Rosario. From Joanna Connell, 4th grader. Salim has done an outstanding job these past few months, showing tremendous academic improvement and a significant reduction in behavior referrals. His teachers are incredibly impressed with his hard work ethic and ability to make great choices. Salim definitely models Connell's respectful, responsible, and safe expectations. 4th grader Salim Asadov. Fourth grader from Deal. Nashawn has made incredible improvements in behavior and academics since the beginning of the year. His attitude towards school has improved tremendously. He is completing his classwork and is such a kind friend to his fellow classmates. He is a student that we can count on to make good decisions, and he now leads by example. He really brings such joy to his classroom. We are so incredibly proud of Nashawn. Nashawn Quarter. Fifth grade from Edison. Ramir always comes to class ready to learn with a positive attitude and participates in our classroom activities. He doesn't understand something, he asks questions so he can improve. Ramir strives to set the example for his class for behavior expectations. Ladies and gentlemen, Ramir Pooh. It's Pew, sorry. Fourth grader from Harding. Riem rarely misses school and is very focused on her schoolwork. She puts forth great effort and works well with her fellow classmates. She earns good grades and is a real leader in her classroom. Ladies and gentlemen, Riem Ahmed. Third grader, and we were made aware that this young lady is home under the weather, so I believe Dad should be here to accept the award. But Jefferson, third grader. Javea has always been a polite and well-behaved young lady. Javea continues to work on her academics and attendance. Javea's attendance has improved dramatically this year. She is here just about every day, ready to learn with a huge smile on her face. So, ladies and gentlemen, father of Javea Dickerson. Third grader from Lincoln. Jalen has changed his behavior 100%. He now smiles, participates in class, tries hard to do whatever is asked of him. He's a great friend to his peers and stays out of trouble. We are delighted to have seen him every day. Great job, Jalen. Jalen Woodard. From McKinley, fourth grader. Caden has become a leader at McKinley by being responsible, respectful, and kind to others. He works with our younger life skills students daily and has developed many good relationships through mentoring others. We are very proud of Caden's progress during these last few months. Ladies and gentlemen, Caden Thompson. From Perry, second grader. Leitha Casea Rivera has improved her behavior since the beginning of the year. She has learned how to handle conflict resolution, can de-escalate a situation on her own, and is kind and considerate of others. She is a pleasure to have in class. Ladies and gentlemen, Leitha Casea Rivera. And our youngest student, kindergartner from Piper Burley, Angel has made great strides. She has really turned her behavior around. She is an advocate in the classroom for following of rules. After a rough start of the year, she comes into school daily with a huge smile on her face, ready to learn. Ladies and gentlemen, Angel Carson. Okay, yep. So, oh yeah. Did I miss? Oh. Sorry. All right. So I know that you want to come up and speak to this real quick? Excellent. Excellent. So, fifth grader Rayana Anderson. No, we don't have a plaque, but I will get you one, okay? We'll get you one for sure. Thank you so much for speaking up, and that is one of our school guidance counselors at Lincoln, so we really appreciate you speaking up on her behalf. We'll make sure she has a plaque, no problem at all. Okay? So if we don't have anybody else, and we're good to go. So all the stair climbers, if you guys would just shift over, we're going to have you line up in front of the board and the assistant superintendents. Squeeze it in, small group. Thank you, everybody. So parents and guardians will meet out. Thank you very much.
The next item on our agenda is the hearing of citizens, and as you know, most of you, we have a rule that says if you want 5 minutes of speaking time, you can have that if you request it in advance. And tonight, Michael Ebby, the owner of Bickford Senior Living. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Tyler. We need a motion to accept and approve the report of the superintendent.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Feeney and seconded by Mr. Spiegel. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Report is approved. Thank you, Tyler. Okay, Michael Ebby, the owner of Bickford Senior Living, wants to speak and introduce himself and his company to the board. Michael?
Good evening. And it's, EB is actually a good Pennsylvania German name. So we come from Lancaster, I guess you could say it. So I am Mike EB from Bickford Senior Living. Live in Kansas City. We're a family-owned business, and we took over the old Sunrise on Bayfront Avenue in mid-2018. And I have some brochures and a book, kind of how we got started, because I think it's relevant to what I have to say. We've been a family business for 30 years. We've been in this business for 30 years. And originally my father was a Caterpillar dealer, but my grandmother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and there wasn't any place in the center of the country for assisted living. You know, it wasn't heard of. There was quite a few on the east and west coast. So our family was one of the early adopters of assisted living in the center of the country. And we've just grown onesie-twosie from there. We took over, I work with my two brothers. We own the company, and we bought the company from my mom and dad back in 2008. And so we've been fortunate to operate now about 60 branches in 10 different states. Most of it is ground-up development, and we're very glad to be in the Erie community. It's by far the best setting of any one of our properties, by far, so just beautiful. My mom is still involved. She goes with us to when we go visit our buildings. She likes to talk to the residents and visit with the employees. I was struck with some earlier comments about the board and how you guys serve, and it's a passion. And senior housing is our passion. And there's a lot of other businesses out there that are probably easier to do, but it's not our mission. It's not what we were put here on earth for, and I think I've read the financial improvement plan that the board is under, and I really empathize with what you guys go through. But what I'm here today to do is just talk for a couple of minutes about the property taxes that we're assessed with, and just to get maybe some help. The purchaser of the property in 2018 was NHI, a National Health Investors, a REIT out of Nashville, Tennessee, and we valued it. We bought the business, and unfortunately, because they're a REIT, that's what they put on their transfer declaration, or the transfer form, declaration form, whatever, I can't remember what it's called. But when the assessor saw that, a good chunk of that is the business value, but the entire amount is now our assessed value. So I'm not the owner. The owner of the building is NHI. I'm just the tenant. But I'm here because the tenant is responsible in a triple net lease for these property taxes.
Michael, I just want to remind you have 5 minutes total, so if you could please wrap it up, and if you don't find enough time to express yourself, you could contact our solicitor with any concern.
Yeah, I'm just about done.
Okay.
I'm just about done. I do have a handout that shows the discrepancy between our company, our building, and some competitors on a square foot basis.
Okay.
They're anywhere from $70 to $100 a square foot, and we're $270 now. And our taxes have gone up from $175 to $450.
But are you two,
Sally, this is for
excuse me.
citizens. This isn't for us to debate with him. This is for citizens to speak.
I would like a copy of what you have.
He's going to give us one, as I understand it.
Yes, I have plenty here. So, 5 minutes up? Yeah, close enough. All right, thank you.
I appreciate your being agreeable to that. It's close, but if you had another remark to finish with.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
He did the same thing I did, he calculated by square foot compared to his competitors like I did. He's right. But is he too high or the others too low?
Right.
We want the others to be too low.
And Mr. Wachter, are there enough copies for all the board, or if not, would you please see that within a day or so that we get them? Okay, thank you. Are there any other citizens that wish to speak? No one else has written in for 5 minutes of speaking time. Is there anyone in the audience tonight who would wish to speak to the board for 3 minutes?
Every 10 years or so, or I wonder if the mayor will push for reassessment.
Doesn't help him.
Please state your name and address, and then write it down if you would for us there.
I already did. My name's TJ Sandell. I live at 2712 Plum Street.
No.
Some of you know me. I'm back again tonight. For those of you that don't know me, I'm the president of the Building and Construction Trades Council for the region. I also, I'm a chair, and I'm on several different government authority boards. So I have a lot of hats that I wear. I want to talk about the proposed changes for the responsible contractor policy. I'm a kind of a common sense kind of guy. I believe in that common sense prevails on a lot of things. And common sense is, for us, is a staple of the community. It's common sense to me that the building trades goes out and we actively recruit women and minorities. We go to job fairs. When Mr. Askins calls me from Erie High School about his career day, our representatives are always there because we believe in a fundamental thing, and that's providing jobs and skill sets that last a lifetime, that produce jobs that pay a living wage, that allow people to retire with dignity. We spend millions of dollars in private money every single year on apprenticeship training. Nobody can say that but us, because we're the expert at it, and I'm living proof that it works. The options out there, I believe in compromise, and I think after I actually reviewed them, there is a good option, and it's agreeable. And I think that the option 2 is a good and realistic way to approach it. I understand that. We all understand that there's not an apprenticeship for an overhead door installer. It's a specialty thing. And Mr. Wachter was gracious enough to call me when the turf was being installed in the stadium to say, hey, there's no apprenticeship for that. I says, Tim, it's common sense. I said, we know that. We know that there's specialty things that are going to be out there that there's not going to be an apprenticeship for. However, a blanket waiver of that subcontractor doesn't make sense because there's critical infrastructural pieces of construction projects that are done by subcontractors. For example, iron workers that erect all the steel. God forbid you have a steel beam give way and a roof collapse inside of a building. You're going to lose lives. The painting, the drywall finishing, the insulation, the brick masonry, all of those things are under the GC General Primes of the bids. They're subcontractors, and they're critical aspects of that. I get it that there's not going to be maybe a contractor that is specialized in caulking the door for whatever reason. We understand that, but the critical aspects of those things are at stake. So I would ask that you would graciously support the option 2. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other citizens that wish to speak to the board this evening?
My name is Jim Newber. I live at 3029 Liberty Street, Erie. I have some written comments. Good evening, Superintendent Polito, President Harkins, Vice President Titus, school directors. My name is James Newber, as I stated. I represent the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers in Erie. I understand the school board will decide tonight whether to modify the current responsible contractor language in place for work that is going to be performed at the Northwest Pennsylvania Collegiate Academy. Please allow me to offer my opinion on this matter. When a school district project is to be bid, if the project meets the criteria for the prevailing rate, then every contractor must use the same hourly rate of pay the state has mandated. The bulk of funds to pay this comes from the taxpayer. Any contractor that has the ability to go after this work to set a standard of quality craftsmanship, a past Erie School Board approved the responsible contractor policy you are reviewing tonight. As a 103-year-old structure, the Northwest Pennsylvania Collegiate Academy is not the building to experiment on when it comes to modifying the responsible contractor policy. As a consumer, as a taxpayer, I've always believed in what you pay for what you get. I'll use my trade as an example. If a contractor hires an electrician who is paid the state prevailing wage week in and week out, then that electrician must be worth it. Otherwise, that contractor would get rid of this employee. A person becomes a craftsman, craftswoman, through the years of training, starting with entry into an apprenticeship. The apprenticeship I am affiliated with, an apprentice will attend school and work side by side with a journeyman wireman for 5 years. Between the curriculum and this hands-on training sets a high bar for the other 2 electrical apprenticeships in this area. You heard me correctly. There are 3 Pennsylvania state-approved electrical apprenticeships that encompasses Erie County. For some general contractors, there is an issue finding qualified subcontractors because of this policy or part of it, specifically the apprenticeship requirement. From what I have read, the problem lies with fencing and landscaping contractors. I know of a few of these companies that have agreements with an organization that has an apprenticeship. This would qualify these companies with the Erie School District's responsible contractor policy. Say a general contractor requests a price from one of these contractors and not receive one, then I believe a Plan B is warranted. A resolution should be passed to allow contractors to submit a written explanation of why subcontractor responsibility certifications cannot be provided in lieu of submission of contractor responsibility certifications. This way, qualified, quality-driven subcontractors would not be overlooked. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Newber.
Hi, my name's Scott Johnson. I'm 1841 West 22nd Street. So I am the business manager of the Roofers Union here in Erie. I did get the pleasure of stepping in and listening to the board meeting. Now, one of the things I see that Mr. Zogsby is not in here, but one of the things he kept stating was that this requirement is basically union versus non-union. It's a union problem. We are just simply trying to get work for our guys. It is not a union versus non-union problem. A non-union contractor can very easily go out and obtain an apprenticeship program. It doesn't happen very often. The reason being is they would be held accountable to have to up the person's wages. This responsible contractor, through the apprenticeship part, states that they have to progress the people to go through and graduate out of that program. While that's happening, your pay is going up. Now, I would ask you, what contractors do you have? When TJ was up here, he was talking about recruiting, coming into the job fairs, the career fairs, all this stuff. I've come in on Saturdays, my time off. I've come into East High to go ahead, or East Middle School now, sorry, to come in and do the career fair, trying to recruit the people. He also talked about fiscal responsibility. We pay a living wage. We don't require any higher education other than 12th grade, GED, or high school diploma. With that being said, you're educators. We bring them in then, run them through an apprenticeship program, training them on everything they need. I left a letter up there with all you guys. I passed out prior to the start of this meeting. You heard what Jim said about their program. We have a 3-year program, 4,500 hours they have to go through with trained other people. Now, I also made a challenge when I came up and passed these letters out. Please, as educators, educate me on this. What do you save by hiring a contractor that comes in that does not have an apprenticeship program? Because yesterday, their workers were making $14, if they're lucky, maybe $15 an hour with no benefits. Prevailing wage, at least the roofing end of it, is set by me. It is $45.51 an hour. So yesterday, that worker was $14 an hour. I don't know what kind of sleep they're getting or where they're doing it, but what gained them this skill set overnight that they step onto the Collegiate Academy job and they mandate $45.51 an hour. Because prevailing wage sets, if you don't have an apprenticeship program, every person on that job site has to be paid that $45.51. Fiscal responsibility. How is that fiscally responsible? I agree with you when you said earlier that you don't have to be union to be a good, skilled contractor. I get that. I go after and try to recruit these guys all the time. There are some. Unfortunately, not that many. So anyways, fiscal responsibility, please show me where you save money by hiring somebody that doesn't have that skill set, that yesterday they were $14 an hour and today they're $45.51, and then we'll go back to the $14 an hour when they're off that project. So, again, I'm sorry my time's over, but the option 2, you wouldn't go get a steak dinner, filet mignon, and you don't like peas and you didn't know what it was because it was just vegetable of the day. Your dinner plate comes out. Again, common sense. We talked about How do you turn around and take your whole meal and push it off to the side because you don't like peas? So why would you do away with all of the responsible contractor thing? Because you have two different skill sets
Scott,
that we don't offer for.
thank
Okay.
you.
Sorry, thank you.
That's all right, thank you. Are there any other citizens that wish to speak? The next item on our agenda is report of committees. There's still some work being done on that. It's probably an appropriate time to mention a few things. Darlene Feeney has replaced Robbie Fabrizi as the board rep on the Stadium Commission. Lori Pickens has shown an interest in maybe being the IU5 rep, and she has agreed to shadow Mrs. Feeney to the next meeting that they can, and she wants to, she's trying to be very conscientious and responsible to understand what's involved, so that's pending. I know I haven't had a chance to speak with her, but Ms. McNair has always been our community involvement liaison, and unless she would feel differently, I would.
No, I'm still working on that.
Well, then that's your specialty, so you please continue with that. The Policy Review Committee came up because of this responsible contractor question, and it was almost unanimously agreed in the Committee of the Whole 2 weeks ago that we should keep that committee moving and use it to evaluate this policy and decide on whether or not there should be some modifications. So whatever we do on that resolution in a few minutes, which only deals in any of the three options with the Academy project this year, that committee, everyone's recognizing, I think, the need and the interest in having that committee deal with that policy. At the Committee of the Whole meeting 2 weeks ago, Mr. Nichols and Mrs. Feeney expressed an interest, and so they will be on the committee. I mentioned it briefly to Tyler this evening. The prior committee was myself, Mr. Spiegel, and Mr. Titus, and I didn't have a chance to talk with Mr. Spiegel, but between him and Tyler, I would assume, I'd like one of them to be the chairman. I asked Tyler, and he said he's able to, unless you two have a difference of opinion, or you would want to, Tom. Tyler's involved with a lot, but I know you're a businessman and you're busy too, so.
We'll talk.
All right, so we'll get that going, but I want to assure everyone of this, that whenever there is a committee meeting of any kind, any board member is welcome and can participate. So these are not to isolate any board member from any discussion, but everybody on all sides of this has shown an interest in and expressed a need to, agreed to the need to review this particular policy, no matter what we do in a few minutes on the Academy question. So I'll call if anybody else has anything else, but I did get a letter from the EDDC, the Erie Downtown Development Corporation, with copies to all of you, where Mr. Persinger, John Persinger, said he would like to be able to update each of us as a board on their investments, and he'd like the opportunity to discuss revitalization efforts, answer any questions that we may have, and discuss how we can collaborate together. So I only bring this up because I just became aware of it, and at some point we should answer this letter and accommodate his request, and perhaps we can have him appear at a Committee of the Whole and allow extra time for that, or we can schedule a special meeting if we have need for some other purpose of a meeting, even a noon meeting, if that is comfortable or convenient for us. But I just mentioned it so that you're aware of it, and we'll get back to you. I'll have Angela Jones check with you on your availability, and we'll bring that into focus. Does any board member have any questions or comments about committees or liaisons or?
Mr. President?
Angela?
Yes, so as far as the John Persinger, I do sit on their community advisory board as well, so I think it would be a great idea for this board to engage the things that we talk about on that board and some of the projects that they're doing, because they are going to be bringing a lot of different new ventures to the downtown area. I don't know if it affects us or not in any way, but they have purchased, properties and doing a lot down there in that whole Perry Square area. It's like, I believe it's a 6-block radius so far that may travel up State Street in the future. So I think it would be great if we were informed of some of the things that they're going to be doing. And then also, I just wanted to thank everyone who has been donating to our book drive. We've been getting a lot of unexpected donations, and I'm very excited, and I appreciate B and everybody else that's been helping out, especially the librarians. I met with Barb Zimmer and the 2 librarians, and they have came up with a massive spreadsheet that I couldn't even imagine putting together myself for all 10 of the elementary schools, and it's amazing. They have helped me tremendously to the point where they have the list so perfected that they can send out invoices of what we still need for each school that they don't have. So I don't even have to worry about it, as much as I was. So I'm excited for that. And, once again, I thank the Knox Law Firm. I thank our partnership who gave us a nice donation, and I really appreciate them as well. And also the Elected Women's Group, just committed to donating books as well, and many others. And next month, I'm hoping that we can recognize some of those people who have donated to this book drive and continue to want to donate to it. It seems like it picked up some more momentum, so hopefully we'll be able to put these library books in all 10 schools, in Eagles Nest and everywhere else that needs books and things like that. So I just want to say I appreciate everybody in the community that's been committed to this project. And I didn't even imagine it was going to go this far, but I'm very excited for the students that it is.
Okay, thank you. Any other board members? Mr. President. Mr. Spiegel.
Just a couple of general comments. One, and I wish Cody was still here, but I just wanted to thank him for being here. But also his father, I believe, is on his 4th deployment. I think he's over in Afghanistan right now, and I was deployed with him one time, and I think he's at least 4, maybe even 5 different deployments, so he spends a lot of time away. So I want to thank him for that. Secondly, which made me think when Mr. Gates was here, I coach on a basketball team, and we have a player that's on our team that is a deaf student. And I wasn't aware until speaking to his father, the Erie School District. We coordinate and have some of our students down at a school down in Pittsburgh for, I believe, the deaf and the blind. I wasn't aware of that, and I guess it's a fabulous program that the parents are very pleased with. And I'm sure some of you here know about that. I was not aware. I think it'd be interesting to get just a little briefing on that. I was absolutely unaware that this particular student is 11 years old, and I think he spends 4 days a week down in Pittsburgh, and then he comes back maybe on Thursday nights or Friday mornings. I can't remember how it works, but it sounds like a phenomenally run program. So I was very impressed with speaking with his father. So I thought it was very good to hear that. That's all.
Some good things get taken for granted, but with Mr. Gates' work and then his accomplishments in those Deaf Olympics, it brings it to the light. And so perhaps if the superintendent heard that at some point, he can give us an update at one of our future meetings on that topic. Is there any other questions or concerns or comments under committees and liaisons? If not, we need a motion to accept what we heard as our report.
Oh, Mr. President, I do have another report.
Go ahead.
I guess I want the board to know that I generally report a month back. So we did have a land bank board meeting today, and the mayor was actually there. And just quickly, because I'll report next month once I have the minutes. So I always wait till the minutes are approved before I come back to you and report what happened the month before. So I'm going to report on December, but I just wanted you to know the mayor was at the meeting today presenting the city's new strategic plan, and they've done a great job. But what's really special about it is that along with their plan, they also have our plan. And he spoke high words about our superintendent today to our land bank board, and we appreciate that all your leadership and all you've done with that strategic plan. It's just great. And he did say you have copies that you'll be presenting to the board of the city's plan as well. Do we have them or?
I don't, but we will get some and make sure we present
I asked
them.
him for somebody, he said you already had it, but I'll go back and ask if you want. Be happy to. So this is for the December 16th Land Bank Board meeting. And just under unfinished business and new business, is there 1, 2, There were 3 motions for approving proposals for properties that the board tabled for a number of different reasons, whether they didn't have the appropriate bid or they weren't a property that was directly, a vacant property that was directly connected to a property owner. We try to always do that. If, as all possible. We also accepted a offer for $630 for the property located at 1135 East 11th Street. And we also unanimously approved the conveyance of 123 Sobieski Street to the Bayfront East Side Task Force. And I would say we try really hard to work with the neighborhood task force groups and try to acquire or convey properties for them, and that's been very helpful. Mr. Henry reported that he attended the December meeting of the Erie County Land Bank and presented a list of 25 blighted properties, which would consist of our Work Plan 2. The Erie County Land Bank agreed to provide funding in the amount of $322,000 for the acquisition and demolition or other disposition of the properties. And we unanimously approved to empower the Erie Redevelopment Authority to acquire the 25 properties on behalf of the Erie Land Bank. The other thing that the Erie Land Bank Board is working on is a policy for abatement of real estate taxes for properties under the land bank's ownership. We're considering different factors, including the times of the tax exemptions and the assessment reductions when the structures are removed from properties. And we had a conversation about the fact that we're trying to keep the value of the properties as high as we can so that we as taxing bodies will recoup as much income as we can, or revenue as we can. And that's all I have.
Anyone else? Motion to approve committee reports? Moved by Mr. Spagel.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Titus. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Carries. No unfinished business. The next item is the new business of the school district, and please note that includes all of the new business but does not include the responsible contractor question. That will be dealt with after we deal with the school district new business and the supplemental. There is 3 items on supplemental new business. So could we have a motion to approve the items 6 and 7, that being the new business of the school district and the supplemental, but not the separated responsible contractor? Moved by Mr. Spagel.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Titus. Discussion of any of those new business or supplemental new business items? If not, roll call.
Mr. Nichols?
Yes.
Ms. Sheridan?
Yes.
Mr. Spagel?
Yes.
Mr. Titus?
Yes.
Ms. Cooley?
Yes.
Mrs. Feeney?
Yes.
Mrs. McNair? Mr. Harkins?
Yes. Okay, now we come to that question of the responsible contractor policy. And I'll just quickly repeat that it came to be here because we had that committee of the whole meeting 2 weeks ago, and the concern was raised by the administration, and we all responded as best we could that night. The solicitor took the temperature of the room and came up with 3 options that dealt with the things he heard at that time. In any case, with this vote now, we're only dealing with the Academy project, whichever of these options we might approve. My understanding is that as it exists right now, what is there to be voted on if we do nothing to remove it or alter it or switch it is option 1. So perhaps, just a suggestion, I'm thinking out loud, perhaps we can discuss option 1 and then vote up or down on it. And if it passes, that's that. If it fails, then we have the 2 other options, or we can discuss and have board members somehow find a way. You know, I'm trying to make it simple for everyone and clear. At some point, you know, 3 of board members expressed their opinion. I intend to express mine at some point too. So however the board want to proceed, I'm looking, that's my suggestion for the simplest way. Does anyone have another preference? In other words, that would be, we vote on option 1 first, because that's what is on this prepared minutes of the meeting for supplemental new business. Am I right, Mr. Solicitor?
Yes, Mr. Harkins, option 1 is on the agenda at this time. A board member would have the opportunity to amend that item if they wished, and to swap it out with one of the others. However you would like to handle it.
Would not an amendment nullify that motion? I mean, since they all really themselves are amendments to a policy, if that's an attempt to amend an existing policy and we try to amend it.
I believe, Mr. President, they have the option to amend the motion.
Okay.
To speak to one of the other items, one of the other options, if they so wished. Would be an option as well, but however you'd like to take the motions.
Well, if someone has a strong feeling to do something differently than what they're hearing, please say so.
Mr. President.
Mr. Tiz?
I would like to hear the comments before we go on to the vote. So you said that you had something that you would like to state. So before we go into the vote, I would like to hear your opinion.
I'm just one of us, and
Or whoever would like
yeah,
to.
but I mean, so that it helps people know how I may vote on option 1, I'll make it clear right now that I prefer option 2. I don't think we need to take I think that I was part of a board that supported and created and put that policy into place in good faith to protect the interests of the school district, and I'm not for making a dramatic change to it yet. We have a specific situation we're trying to deal with. I was one who, in that meeting 2 weeks ago, said I would be open to waiving it entirely for the academy thing, so I have to take some of the, I was in on what influenced the solicitor to create option 1, I believe, and I acknowledge that. But in the 2 weeks since, I've had time to be objective, think about it, and talk to people, and listen to the remarks I heard tonight. And all that being said, I'm going to favor option 2. So if we vote on option 1 first, I'm going to vote against it. And if it doesn't pass, then we can have a board member move that we approve option 2 or option 3 at that point. But if a majority of the board wants to support option 1, that'll be that. And again, we're going to have the committee deal with the whole policy in its entirety, and that'll probably involve a lot of work, a lot of time to allow everyone in the community to express itself and to accommodate the strong feelings on all sides of this. So I'm trying to do my job to keep everyone aware of that. But as an individual board member, I'm going to support option 2 and vote accordingly.
Mr. President, I have a question.
Ms.
Well, maybe a question for you. So you said that a board member can, number 1 is on here to vote on, correct?
Yes.
So before we even vote on number 1, can we make the amendment and say that I would like the board to vote on option 2 and see, like, do we have the ability to do that?
I think they each have separate aims, and I don't know that we'd want to shuffle them together, but that's my opinion.
No, I mean, just saying, if I wanted to say, okay, I want to amend this item on the agenda, and, I want to make a motion to vote on, do we want option 2? Would you be able to do something like that?
Mr. Chairman, don't we have a rule that says that we can't amend a motion which in effect nullifies the motion?
Rule B 341 says when a motion is before the board, and quite frankly, no motion is before the board at this time.
Right.
No motion shall be entertained except to adjourn, recess, lay on the table, close debate, to refer, to postpone indefinitely, to postpone to a certain time, or to amend. Motion shall take precedence in the order above named.
Mr. President?
Mr. Polito?
May I suggest that in order to keep this as clean as possible and assist Mrs. Jones with her record keeping, that maybe we just go for the option 1 first, and if that fails, go to 2 and then possibly 3, rather than get into some additional voting for amendments that will ultimately end up at the same place.
That would be my preference, and I just respectfully want to say to the solicitor that the supplemental and the new business always is preceded with this sentence, that the following recommendations of the superintendent be approved. and him being a non-voting member of the board, he has submitted it, so that item is there in my interpretation of what we're doing, and I think that fits with what he just said.
I'm gonna agree. I was just really confused because when you're saying amend and I would rather do what he said, like vote on one and then go to the next and then go to the next, because
That seems like the easiest thing, the easiest to do procedurally. So if that's the case, we are at option one, and now we can discuss that. So the board, under our rules, each board member can have up to 10 minutes time total, 2 shots at it, and address their remarks to the chair, through the chair. So we are now going to then discuss option one. Actually, you know, the superintendent put it there, but we need a motion to advance it. We need a motion to approve it, so.
Mr. President, I move that we adopt option one.
Okay. Do you have that, Mr. Solicitor and Ms. Jones?
Mr. Nichols and Mr. Spiegel.
Okay, now we'll have discussion on option one of the responsible contracting question. Anyone? Administration, anyone?
Well, Mr. President, I guess we've already said our piece on this, so I don't want to belabor the point. And I think most of us, I would imagine, already have our minds set up on how we're going to vote. But I will, and I seldom do I really agree with Mr. Zogby, but I have to agree with him quite a bit in that, you know, our primary responsibility is to be good stewards of our taxpayers' money. We are not an employment agency. As much as we need to respect all the employers, all the employees of the city, we have to focus on how we best spend our money, because we have a limited amount of money. As Mr. Zogby said, and I agree, I've said for many, many years, it's always easy to spend somebody else's money. This is our money. If, as Mrs. Feeney was saying, if this is my house, how am I going to best spend money on my house? I really do not care whether the person that is going to secure my home for my family has an apprentice program or not. I want the very best person. And it's not, for the most part, down to the bricklayer. It's down to the manager, making sure that he or she's ensuring the work gets done. To that point, it comes down to Mr. Brockman, to making sure that that manager is doing the job that he or she's supposed to be doing. It's not, in my opinion, it's not about the bricklayer or the plumber or the electrician or whomever it is. It's about the management of that company. How can we best spend our limited amount of money? People keep on talking about 14 million. I'm about tired of hearing about the 14 million. We have a $220 million budget we have to deal with. Isn't that what it is? 220, something like that?
204.
204. Okay, well, what's $200 million? We, as this board, we have to spend that money correctly. In giving it away, and it is giving it away, you can call it whatever you want to, spending it unnecessarily. You try to tell my mother, who cannot afford to pay her own taxes, that how, in any way, shape, or form, we have enough money to spend extra money. And it's not about the prevailing wage. It is what it is. It is the aggregate cost of the job, the total amount. And it doesn't make a difference to me. I don't need to know the details. It's not our job as board members to know the details of how many nails they put into here. That is working in the weeds. We have to see how much does this project cost. How they come up with that dollar amount, that's not up to me. That's really up to Mr. Brockman, making sure it's being spent correctly. It's the total amount, assuming, we all have to assume the quality job that a quality job is going to be done correctly. As Mr. Brockman said earlier, in Wilson, were they union people or non-union people? I really don't know. The job didn't get done correctly, brought them back, get it done correctly. That's why we have bonds. That's why we have proper management. It's not about the bricklayer. It's about the management. I guess people are getting caught up into other personal needs. It's the management of the contract. Please think about that. It's too much money to be giving away extra millions of dollars. That's more money than everybody here makes. Who's really seen $1 million just standing there? That's a lot of money. We're talking about millions of dollars that we're not going to be able to have. So when my son is going through when my son is continuing his education, hopefully at Academy someday, that they have more projects that we can even better the curriculum, not just the infrastructure. We have some extra money to hang out to do more things for our own children. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes, Mr. President.
Mr. Nichols?
This is not a theoretical problem. We're dealing with this right now. There was only one bidder on the electrical contract here. And as Mr. Zogby pointed out, we had several contracts in the last year that only had 1 or 2 bidders. That is not a healthy bidding circumstance. We did have 6 bids on the general contract for this. They varied from $438,000 to $780,000. We, of course, took the $438,000 bid, the low bid, very reputable contractor. But if there'd only been 1 bid and it was $780,000, we would have just thrown away over $300,000 of the taxpayers' money. We have limited resources. We have to husband them.
Any other questions or comments on item 1? Angela?
Yes. That's correct for this one contract, for this one project. Yes.
No matter what happens on any of these, it's just for collegiate, and the administration hopes to learn from that and come back to us with recommendations on what we should do going forward with the bigger Erie High project. So in any case, all 3 of these are dealing only with the Academy project to help us get through this anticipated problem and see if it's effective at solving it, whichever way we go. Mrs. McNair? I'll let the solicitor answer you.
Mrs. McNair, the option 1 says that subcontractors do not have to submit a subcontractor responsibility certification at all. Option 2 says that in the event that they can't find a subcontractor that would be able to comply with the policy, the contractor has the ability to submit a letter explaining why they have selected a subcontractor that does not comply with the subcontractor requirements. So we wouldn't choose which ones, the school district wouldn't choose which parts of which jobs. It would have to be because the contractor had submitted a letter and they could credibly claim why they were unable to provide for a subcontractor certification for that particular subcontractor that they're promoting.
Mr. Superintendent?
Mr. President, I just, again, like to clarify that it is still our recommendation that we would like to see option 1 on this project. I just want to remind the board that although we've had the responsible contractor policy in place since, I believe it was 2012, it has not yet been tested on a major project. This was the first instance where we were going to have this on a project that had a significant amount of subcontractors, and based on the feedback that we received from our architects and the contractors that did write letters and speak to you, there's actually 3 issues that they identified that they had concerns with that we feel, at least for this option, would alleviate that and ensure that we would continue on and have a good bid process. Number 1 was the fact, again, that it was mentioned that we do not have, all the subcontractors do not have programs where there are apprenticeship programs in place. So that was the main issue, because it would be impossible for a bidder to submit a bid with all the subcontractors that met that. Number 2, as they mentioned, oftentimes when they're putting their bids in, they're talking to subcontractors even an hour before submitting those bids, and the burden of trying to obtain all that paperwork in time and make sure that they get it in when those bidders are giving that same thing to different prime contractors, they believe will result in less bids at the subcontractor level. And the third item that they raised as a concern was the issue that many of our subcontractors here in the city do not have apprenticeship programs, and there may be other apprenticeship program or contractors with apprenticeship programs that are outside of the city, which is our belief, and theirs would push a lot of this work outside of the city.
I have a question for the superintendent. When you said it's never been tested, was it not called into question, at least when the stadium turf thing came to everyone's attention? And as the one speaker said, the solicitor and all parties recognized it was a case of common sense. And in my mind, wouldn't option 2 just be a mechanism for that to be brought to the attention formally? It would be through a letter that it would be brought to the administration's attention that there is an unsolvable problem for apprenticeship in whatever case the letter comes for. That's just...
I'd like to clarify that it's the first one that we've used, the first major project that we've tried this with.
Okay.
That has numerous subcontractors tied to it. All the roofing projects this summer, as well as the stadium project, had a minimal amount of subcontractors, which we were more easily able to deal with on a case-by-case basis.
I respect that, but in my support of option 2, I'm suggesting that it seems to me to be a mechanism by which a contractor can make us aware that they're going to be unable to meet it and tell us why, and then we probably will accept it, and that'll be that. That's how I see it. But does anyone else have any questions, concerns on this, and specifically option 1? That's where we're at.
Mr. President.
Mr. Nichols?
Yeah. I also am an attorney. I don't like how option 2 reads. It doesn't make any sense as submitted here. All it says is the contractors can submit a written explanation of why these certifications cannot be provided. There's no standard provided as to what's acceptable or not. It doesn't make any sense to consider option 2. We're trying to clarify our bidding situation, not muddy it. Option 2 is horrible. We've got option 1 or option 3. As an attorney, I'll tell you option 2 makes no sense and we should not consider it.
Was written by an attorney.
It doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
I've got a few more years on that fellow.
Okay.
Mr. President?
Who am I hearing? Oh, I'm sorry, Neil. I thought it was somebody up here.
It's okay. So I at least think we need to bring to light that option 2 is actually already written into the policy. So our current responsible contractor policy says in the paragraph with subcontractors, it says, if a contractor cannot provide such certifications, it must instead provide a written explanation of why such certifications cannot be provided.
Has that happened? Did that happen in this case? Is that how we came to this?
No.
Mr. President, can I speak to that?
We only get 2 shots. Let me ask everyone else first if they want their chance. Sumner, and if there's time, we'll come back to it.
Mr. President, so you're saying option 2 is already written into the policy?
Just to make sure I reread it, and I'm looking at it right now, option 2 is already written into the policy. So the policy that we are currently working under. No. Again, as Mr. Polito said, this is the biggest construction project that we have taken on in probably the last 2 decades in the school district, I would imagine, not since the renovation of Harding, which was in the early 2000s.
Mr. President,
Ms. Sheridan?
option 3, Neil, that's getting rid of everything?
Now, I believe option 1, because it was just put together at the last committee of the whole, and we were gonna kind of beta test it with this project, gets rid of all of the requirements. So that includes the workforce development, I believe, and then there's also some
Here, I
more
have
legal
it.
stuff that Attorney Walker will help with. Option 3 is the one that Mrs. Feeney was put in that says they still need to do everything that the primes have to do, with the exception of the Class A apprenticeship program. That's option 3.
I think.
Ms. McNair, is this your second time? Or- Okay, go ahead.
Is or is not. My question would be is, so option 2 and 3 are basically, we're already doing that already. I know you said option 2 is in our policy already. But currently, we only deal with the apprenticeship right now, correct?
Correct. The difference would be with option 3, the apprenticeship programs would no longer be a requirement for the subcontractors. The primes on every job would still need to be an apprenticeship, be enrolled with an approved apprenticeship program. But the subcontractors would no longer have that requirement. That's option 3.
I don't have any more questions. I'm done.
Okay, anyone else? If there's no one else, Sumner, we only allow 2, but there's time. If this will be the last one, you go ahead. You had another question or concern.
I just wanted to point out, if option 2 is already in this policy that results in us not getting sufficient number of bids, we're all wasting all our time to even be considering it. Option 1 is clear. Option 3, which Darlene proposed, is clear. Option 2 is not clear. And if it's just regurgitating our existing policy, I don't even know why it's on this list. I think we need to consider option 1, that is the one I favor, and then if that isn't, go to option 3 second, and then go to option 2.
Any more discussion on option 1?
Mr. President, I just want to point out that I am in favor of option 2, and that the only reason that I talked to the solicitor about option 3 is because I am extremely frightened by option 1. And right now, we do not have any proof that we are going to get more bids if we change our policy. We only had 2 bids for the RFP for custodial services, 2. So again, it's pretty much the same as what we're getting on our construction. So it's a hypothesis. And I know you want to take a chance on it, on Collegiate Academy and prove it. And I'm looking out for the taxpayers here too, because we could end up with higher costs and change orders. And we all know that change orders have increased our costs. So that's why I just want to make it clear that I am supporting option 2, and option 3 is only there if, because I don't want to waive this entire policy. I think that's negligent.
Will this affect I'm sorry, Mr. President, will this affect how our work getting done? I know last time we talked about, like, when we take on these big projects, that it's taking extra time because we don't have enough qualified bidders. So that would be my most important question. If we don't do option 1, will it hold up the amount of time it's gonna take to get this project finished? Because we wanna get this done as soon as possible.
Superintendent did have something to say, so could you incorporate her question into your remarks, please?
I'm not sure about the completion time aspect of that, but again, our concern, I think when I look at it, when we talk about the three concerns that were waived by the prime contractors, one was the time impact of trying to get the certifications in time for the bidding process. So option one would take care of that issue. The concern about local companies not having an apprenticeship program and other industries not having one overall would also be taken care of by number one. Number two would, I guess we're not looking at number two, but number three would eliminate the issue about the apprenticeship programs for both the local companies and any company that does not have that type of program, and it would not impact the time issue. And I just too also want to clarify that we had a lot of talk about oversight for this project, and that we do have a clerk of the works proposal that we anticipate that we do plan on bringing to you in February. It's our hope that we will have that clerk of works on site and able to oversee this project as well as Erie High.
Okay, at some point we have to vote. I won't rush it, but a couple of board members have used up their options to speak on item one, or option one. If it goes beyond that, they can speak again. But does anyone who hasn't spoken have any remarks or care to? They don't have to.
Mr. President.
Mr. Titus?
For clarification, could you explain on, for either Brian or Neil, I'm assuming, or maybe Tim will know this one, on option number 3, when we're looking at the remainder of the certification requirements still being in place, what do we think those ramifications, or like that will have on the bidding process, and do we think that that's going to, again, prohibit anybody from coming in? Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. We think that would have the least amount of impact on the process. Meaning it would take care of most of our concerns.
Option 3.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, are we ready? No further discussion. Roll call on option one as it relates to the responsible contractor policy.
Mr. Nichols?
Yes.
Ms. Sheridan?
Yes.
Mr. Spagel?
Yes.
Mr. Titus?
No.
Ms. Cooley?
No.
Mrs. Feeney?
No.
Mrs. McNair? Mr. Harkins?
No. Was Angela's a no? Okay. So option one has failed, and now we have options 2 and 3 before us. Does someone wish to advance one or the other? Mr. Spagel?
I wish to advance option 3, please.
Okay, is there a second?
I second that.
Okay, it's moved by Mr. Spagel, seconded by Mr. Nichols. Now, discussion, and we start over. Everybody has a fresh 10 minutes and two opportunities to speak to this.
Mr. President,
Angela?
I just heard what you said, Brian. I just wanted you to repeat that last part about how option 3 would take care of all of our issues. Can you explain that a little bit again?
Option 3 would take care of most of
Most of them,
our
okay.
concerns, so it would be the administration's second choice
It would be your second choice? Okay.
after option 1.
Okay.
Anyone else? Discussion, option 3?
Mr. President?
Mr. Nichols?
I'll just point out again that it is clear. Option 2 is muddy. You're trying to get bids, and if you have a muddy proposal, you're not going to get bids.
Any other discussion on option 3? Roll call on option 3.
Mr. Nichols?
Yes.
Ms. Sheridan?
Yes.
Mr. Spagel?
Yes.
Mr. Titus?
Yes.
Ms. Cooley? Yes. Mrs. Feeney?
I'm going to stick with my gut. No.
Mrs. McNair? Mr. Harkins.
No, I didn't hear Angela. I got bad hearing. All right. All right. So that option 3 has been approved.
6-2.
All right. And as we said and stressed, the entire policy will be under review soon by that Policy Review Committee, at which time everyone can put their opinions forth on it. Okay. Next item is the approval of minutes for December 4th and 11th of 2019. They were attached electronically to the agenda. May we have a motion to approve them? Moved by Mr. Spagle. Seconded by Mrs. Cooley. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Minutes are approved. Bills and payroll. May we have a motion to approve the bills and payrolls that are authorized for payment? Moved by Mr. Spagle. Seconded by Mrs. Cooley. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Nichols?
Yes.
Ms. Sheridan?
Yes.
Mr. Spagle?
Yes.
Mr. Titus?
Yes.
Ms. Cooley?
Yes.
Mrs. Feeney?
Yes.
Mrs. McNair? Mr. Harkins?
Yes. May we have a motion to approve the report of the secretary? Moved by Mr. Spagle.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Sheridan. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Nichols?
Yes.
Ms. Sheridan?
Yes.
Mr. Spagle?
Yes.
Mr. Titus?
Yes.
Mrs. Cooley?
Yes.
Mrs. Feeney?
Yes.
Mrs. McNair? Mr. Harkins?
Yes. There are no bids to be awarded this evening. Is there any other matter for any other discussion by any board member? We had an executive session listed on our committee of the whole meeting, and if the administration still wants to do that, we could, at the point we're ready to do that very soon, go to wherever across the hall or wherever we can and have that if he still wants it. And then I'm a stickler for detail. I would think at some point we'd have Mrs. Jones record that there would be, after that, a motion to adjourn, if not have us come back in here to do it. Just in other words, that's part of the meeting, this meeting that would be continued, is my understanding, unless I'm wrong, Mr. Solicitor. Would we need to come back in here? Could we just in there have a motion to adjourn and approve it, and then announce it at a subsequent meeting that
We do have the option to either adjourn this meeting and then go into a separate executive session, or to go into the executive session as part of this meeting. Either
Okay.
one would be appropriate.
Well, your first suggestion, if that's doable, I understand that better now, because it was gonna be outside of this meeting, and it would still be, so I'm okay with that.
Mr. President.
Mr. Polito?
We only had one topic for executive session, and that can certainly wait till our committee of the whole meeting on February 3rd.
If you think it can wait,
Yes.
that's okay. I would just make one remark. I hurried through that long list of people that we were trying to remember at the beginning of the meeting who had passed away, and I mentioned Gene Turan, and it wasn't just because he was a boxer that he distinguished himself. It was because as a graduate and who put his kids through schools, he was heavily involved with young people, and at various times he worked with troubled youth and helped them through boxing to do better and find their focus. And he also led the way to the creation of the Miss Tawny pageant, which helped young black women with self-esteem issues and pride. And so he used that notoriety to acquire. It wasn't just because he was a notable athlete, but when he used that notoriety for good purposes for the sake of the youth of the community. That's why I wanted to.
And Mr. Harkins,
Yes,
just to let you know, Ms. Tawny is still going on because I am the program director.
Okay. You're aware, I was correct, wasn't I? Who started it or who led the way?
He did start it in 1966, and I was involved in it since the 70s, and when he left, I became the pageant director.
As a contestant?
I was a contestant, yes, I was a contestant, and after that, I continued with it.
I was half kidding, but I'm glad to hear that. Is there any other matter which any director wishes to bring up for discussion tonight? If there is none, Mr. Spagle has moved to adjourn. Is there a second? Second. We have a motion by Mr. Spagle, second by Mr. Titus. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
So you were just finally.